I guess I have to share my screen before it'll record. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so looks like we're recording. I'm going to mute everybody. Alright, can everybody see my screen? Alright, perfect. Okay, so welcome, and hope everybody's having a great weekend. We've got a bunch of administrative stuff that we need to cover real quick just on the upcoming week and the go forward, as well as just a few side notes and things like that. And then we'll go ahead and we'll go over Chapter 6 for your Module 4. Notice there's only one chapter this week. And we'll talk a little bit about the midterm as well. I have gone ahead and opened up the Module 4 to you guys already, as well as the midterm, so it is no secret. The midterm is out there. You can take a look at it, start preparing, and I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on that as well to help you do better on it. Then we will take any questions and wrap up. It should be a fairly short webinar this week since there's only one problem to solve for your homework. So let's start with the administrative stuff. So as all of you know, I am moving for a job offer that I had received down in Georgia, and it was one I could not refuse. So we will be moving this week, or this coming weekend, actually. I will likely not be available to do a webinar next weekend, so I'm going to push it to Monday night next week. So we will do the next webinar on April the, let's see here, April the 13th, that Monday night. I'm going to push it to, let's do 8 o'clock, just to make sure that I don't get lost coming home from my first day of work in a completely new area. So let's do 8 o'clock. Monday the 13th will be our next webinar. I will do my best to stay connected and stay with you guys while we move. I do have everything email on my phone. I ask that if you do have a question or a problem or something in the coming week that you email me about it. Don't post it in the discussion board, because I don't know, you know, I have everything set to connect on internet Saturday, but that doesn't mean anything. We all know that there's issues that can come up, and with us not being here anymore, it'll be a little difficult for me to possibly get internet at times. So just bear with me through this, and I promise you we'll get through it. I will work with everybody to make sure that, you know, if you have an issue, don't hesitate to reach out. I know that we've had several people that have come up quite ill or have lost family members, and I apologize for that. You know, I am willing to work with you guys when stuff like that happens, so don't hesitate to reach out. I know life happens, and I know that, you know, you can't always predict when, you know, you're not going to be able to turn in your homework on time or something to that nature. I do ask that everybody make sure they get the midterm in on time, because that's one thing I can't change, okay? Yeah, you know, and unfortunately I have to turn in midterm grades by a certain time, so if you're late on the midterm, that poses a huge problem for turning in those midterm grades. So at any rate, just make sure you get that midterm in on time. It's due Sunday, April the 12th by midnight, and I will do my very best to get those graded and back to you very quickly. It will be my first week at my new job, so and I will also be starting a new class for my doctorate degree, so should be a pretty interesting week for me. But I'll work through it, make sure I take care of you guys, and we'll get through everything together. So just communicate with me. You know, if you get really sick and you have to go to the hospital or something like that, please let me know. You know, so that I know what's going on. I know sometimes that's harder, you know, than asked. You can't necessarily stop everything and say, wait, I got to email my professor. I get it. So, you know, just let me know as soon as you can so I don't worry. Then, let's see, what other administrative items? Okay, so as I said, I've opened up Module 4 for you. You can see the midterm. I'm going to go ahead and pull that over onto the screen real quick. Give me just a second. So here's what it looks like. It's a Word document. Okay? And you'll see it is 10 problems that are very much like the problems that you've had in your homework. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. Okay, the best strategy that you can employ to get a really good grade on this midterm is to go through, and before you try doing the midterm, go back and redo with the homework answers all of the homework problems. So basically what I'm saying is go back into the book, read the homework problem, okay, and take the answer and work it as you're reading through it. So trace back all the numbers to see where they're coming from. Make sure you look at the problem as a whole so that you understand, you know, what you need to do to set it up, right? So a lot of times the biggest question that you'll have is, where do I even begin with this? How do I start setting this up? Well, go back and, you know, match up these problems to see which one, how they match with the homework problems. They're going to ask you very similar questions as what you've had in the homework problems. Okay? Go back into your book and find where they've worked these out in your book and note it. And that way you can say, okay, with question 1, I need to go to such and such problem in the book or such and such page in the book, and this is how I set it up. Right? So if you do that, if you take the time to do that and take the time to match it up, you'll get this problem right 100% of the time. Just use the same numbers that they do, okay? So that's one of my tips for you guys on this midterm is you can see it's all problems, and you're allowed to use your book, you're allowed to use your homework, you're allowed to use your notes. I would go in and print out all the homework PowerPoints, the answers, and make sure you have those sitting with you, you know, kind of note them, and combine where needed. I think all of you will do just fine. You know, everybody's pretty much been doing pretty well on the homework. It's just confusion sometimes which number you pull from where, or which number it is you're supposed to use, or, you know, a lot of times it's simply a rounding issue, which I can get over the rounding issue. I will tell you on this midterm and on your homework, only use 2 decimal places, okay? So if you're using some kind of a calculator or something like that, round to the nearest hundredth, okay? So only use 2 decimal places, dollars and cents, okay? And that should help too with some of the rounding issues. I would also recommend that if you're going to do this, that maybe you open up an Excel document and use that to calculate these problems. You know, set them up using the formulas like I do. That will likely help you get the correct answer. Okay, sometime, and just go back through and make sure you check your numbers, make sure you didn't key something incorrectly. You know, really check your work before you submit it to me. Okay, this is due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. That's Sunday, April 12th at 11:59 p.m. Okay, so make sure you have this into me by that time. All right. Quiz is also due for Module 4 at that time. Make sure you don't forget to do that. There is a quiz for this module. So make sure you do the quiz, make sure you turn in the homework for it, and make sure you turn in the midterm. All right. The homework this week, like I said, is only one problem. So, and we're going to go over that. And then I will take any other questions that you have. Sound good? Yes, I am doing a study guide for Module 4, Jeanette. That's a great question. Okay, I'm working on that right now. I should have that posted this afternoon so that you can go through and do the quiz. Okay. On the study guides, make sure that you don't read a whole lot into the questions. They're pretty straightforward, and usually they come directly from a statement that's made in one of the chapters. Okay. I haven't found one yet that doesn't. So I literally just take it and reword it. So don't dive too far into it. Just take it and look for that type of wording somewhere in your chapter. Okay? They are coming directly from the text. And yes, Jeanette, you're quite welcome. So everybody's doing a really good job. I'm pleased with the progress that everybody's making. Just keep up the hard work. I know that, you know, there have been complications for some of the people in our class and stuff like that. You know, like with the books and everything, we're working through all of that. And I just really appreciate your effort and your hard work, and keep doing it, you know, and you're going to be just fine. We'll see how the midterm turns out, and that will determine whether or not we have to do any extra credit. You know, so we'll just leave it at that right now. If we do extra credit, it will be a paper, a research paper, and I will let you know what that'll be after I get those graded. Okay? All right, so let's see. Let's take a look at this Chapter 5 real quick. Or, I'm sorry, Chapter 6. We're in Chapter 6, aren't we? Alright, so let's get into Chapter 6 here. And it's going to talk about activity-based costing, customer profitability, and activity-based management. Alright, so activity-based costing, customer profitability, and management. Activity-based management. So activity-based costing is known as ABC in the accounting world. Kind of funny. So the activity-based costing, or ABC product costing model, will be one thing we take a look at. Traditional product costing and ABC are going to be compared. Okay. You have implementation issues with ABC, and it'll discuss those. And ABC and customer profitability analysis. So like a customer profitability profile, right, and their analysis. This will be very important as well. There are a lot of companies these days that really tend to watch, you know, the activity-based costing and customer profitability. My company, for instance, is one of them, because especially with software, you know, you're looking at implementation issues and things like that, and it does become quite costly because you have people that will be either on site or, you know, working with that customer actively in some way off-site, and, you know, that's taking up a lot of time and driving a lot of cost into the profitability of that customer. Obviously, you want to make the most profit per customer that you can, but you also have to provide good customer service as well. So there are a lot of considerations and issues with that. So that's why this is important. You want to maximize this because it's going to overall maximize the company profitability, but at the same time you have to have satisfied customers as well. Then we discuss the difference between ABC and activity-based management. Okay. So here it talks about the changing cost environment, and one thing I will tell you is in this chapter, what I'm already seeing on this quiz is that you definitely want to read the entire chapter. There are a lot of details within these paragraphs, and you need to read them fully and understand what they're talking about. Try to comprehend it. Okay. So here's activity-based costing. It involves determining the cost of activities and tracing their cost objects on the basis of the cost object's utilization of units of activity. All that's saying is it's all based on how many units of activity occur. So how many units? Just keep that in mind. So you've got customers who are served by these activities. So like, let's take software for instance, some kind of software package, whether it be, installed on computers or whether it be in the cloud. You have to do a lot of implementation for those programs. Okay? So those are the types of activities where you're going in, you're implementing it, you're training the customers on it, and then you're supporting it as well on a go-forward basis. Those all cost the company money. Okay? They should also cost the consumer money. They should be the ones paying for it. Okay? So then they're consuming the resources, and those resources also have costs. Okay? The cost resources are then consumed by the activities and should be assigned to cost objects on the basis of the units of activity consumed. That all sounds very complex. Okay, so let's break it down. You've got cost of the resources. So let's say, for instance, I'm assigned to a project to go implement the software that we create to a customer. I am one of those resources. Okay, so my time, my salary is a resource, right? It's assigned to activity pools. So an activity pool might be something like the implementation of that software. Okay, so implementation is an activity pool, right? Or training. Training is an activity pool. Or support. Support would be an activity pool. And then it's reassigned to cost objects. So that's going to be like the customer. Which customer? Because, for instance, I would be a resource, training or implementation would be the activity pool, and then customer XYZ, let's say Jeanette is the customer. Jeanette would be the cost object. Okay? So does that make sense? Kind of explain this in layman's terms? Okay, cool. All right, so you've got the ABC product costing model, right? And this is what it looks like. All these fun lines, right? So the cost resources are directly traceable to the cost objects, like direct materials and direct labor. For what I was I know, Brandy, for what I was talking about, I would be direct labor. Okay, so don't let all the arrows get you and confuse you. Okay, so cost of resource 1. Let's say I'm resource 1. Let's say I'm going to go implement the software that we sell. All right, so then there's a product cost, product 1 cost. All right. So activity 1, let's say I cost $1,000 to implement. Then activity 2, you've also got the building and development of that software. So there's a bunch of guys on the back end that build and develop that software. Their salary is what it costs to build that software. In addition, there's usually always some kind of product or resource license. So for instance, we sell NetSuite where I work now. Okay, NetSuite is an ERP package. We resell it. We put different modules onto it for the customers that we serve and resell it with the modules that we've got overlaid on top of it. But we have to pay for a NetSuite license each and every time we pay or we get a new customer, because they have to have a license for it. So that license would also be a product cost, right? And then you also have the support team who has to support it. So there's another activity. You have myself, who not only implements, but they train. So training is another activity, right? So all of that goes into each one of these, okay? So activity costs are reassigned to the cost objects using the activity drivers. Okay, the activity driver is just going to basically say, you know, this is what activity 1 costs, this is what activity 2 costs, and this is what activity 3 costs. And these are the stages that it might be going through. Because over here, you know, is training. You're not going to train a customer until you've got 1, 2, and 3 done. Does that make sense? So this is confusing and as bad as it looks, right? We just take it and we break it down into layman's terms and we put it into an actual scenario that you're looking at, okay? Alright, so traditional and product costing and ABC compared. Alright, it gives you an overhead, applying overhead with a plant-wide rate. The example of that is right here. So you're just taking manufacturing overhead and you're dividing out plant-wide machine hours. So this is if you're manufacturing something. You've got the overhead and you've got the machine hours, right? So that gives you the total overhead rate per machine hour, right? So that's one thing you can figure out. You can also, this is actually doing V8 and V8 splash, okay? 2 products that commonly known, right? So it looks like direct materials for that are 125, direct labor is 110, and then you've got manufacturing overhead, which are the 3 machine hours and 2 machine hours per product, right? So the 3 machine hours for V8 are shown here. The 2 machine hours for V8 splash are shown over here, okay? And that's giving you a total unit cost by adding all of those up, okay? So again, it's just basically breaking down the various components of what makes up a cost, okay? Don't let it overwhelm you. It's literally breaking down the cost, okay? So, applying overhead with department rates, right? You've got the department is mixing and bottling, so there's 2 different departments. And you've got the manufacturing overhead application base with the direct labor hours and the machine hours, okay? So when we take a look at that, you've got your 2 products here. So you've got your total department manufacturing overhead, which is the direct department cost plus the allocated costs, okay? So make sure you know that. That's 2 components that go into this number, okay? Then you've got the quantity of overhead application base, so you've got your direct labor hours. These 2 things make the quantity of overhead application base, the direct labor hours and the machine hours. So those are 2 things that go into this, okay? So for V8, you've got 500 direct labor hours, and for V8 splash, you have machine hours, okay? So apparently V8 is directly produced by a person. So those have direct labor hours. Whereas V8 splash is just bottled. It's just used in the machinery. Okay? So you put that into play and this is what you get. You get V8 has $118.20 per direct labor hour. Now notice labor hours, machine hours, machine hours. So make sure you label things correctly as well. Okay? Then you've got unit costs per batch. Now all we're doing is taking what we had done up here, okay, and what we've done here, and coming up with our total cost per batch. Okay? So you've got direct materials, labor, manufacturing overhead, which it's talking about the mixing and the bottling, okay, for each product. and you'll see how that's broken out, and that gives you your total cost. Right? Most of the information is always going to be given in problems, so don't panic. You just need to come back to these pages, mark them, and make sure that you follow the steps down. Okay? Alright, so then we go to applying overhead with activity-based costing. Okay? And here, this is a good little business insight for you to read. Okay, this is comparisons of activity-based costing to non-activity-based costing users on 3 key benefits. Okay, so the non-ABC method users go down through these 3 key benefits. Our systems accurately trace activity costs to final cost objects. Non-ABC users disagree with that, and this is the percent that do agree with that. So you can see that non-ABC users disagree that things are accurately tracked. Okay? So this is kind of showing you the key benefits. Alright? And you can see that activity-based method users, when surveyed, agree that those 3 key benefits are much better tracked and traced when they do use ABC. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why companies so heavily use this. Alright? So here's a detailed analysis of overhead costs for this particular V8 division, right? And it just this is going to show you exactly how to break it down. All right, so this is how you'll want to set that type of problem up. Okay, goes on, and it shows you the factory overhead costs per unit based on ABC costs. Okay. And it shows you the quantity of activity, the cost of the activity for each one, and then breaks it down to give you the total factory overhead product cost and the total unit product cost using ABC. Okay? So this is how companies manage these types of costs. Alright? Then you've got total product costs for Campbell's 2 products using 3 different overhead cost assignment methods. Okay, so here, this is one of the things that you'll be doing in the problem, right? Is you're gonna be figuring out like setup costs, scheduling costs, production, engineering, supervision costs, and it just walks you down through an entire set of doing all of this throughout the chapter. Okay. So that's what the problem that you're going to do for homework does. It gives you a planned overhead rate, a departmental overhead rate, and your total activity-based costing. Okay. Then you're at your mid-chapter review. And then it talks about ABC implementation issues. Now, again, you need to read the chapters because a lot of the stuff that's going to be on the quiz will be talked about in these parts. Okay? ABC and customer profitability analysis talks about that. So here's a profitability profile graph. Now don't worry, there are no graphs on this batch of homework. I know that was difficult for everybody, and if we have more time I would go in to show you how to do some of these graphs, but we don't have a lot of that time right now. So I would suggest YouTube. I would also suggest Microsoft. Microsoft has some excellent training that is free on Microsoft Excel. I would take a look at it. They basically can train you to do anything, okay, with the free training. So just take a look at that. This shows the customer profitability profile graph. So customers from most profitable to least profitable. Okay, so you've got some down here that were not profitable. Then you've got overall the average is running right around in here. Okay. Here is Another chart that shows 5 customer-related activities. These are visits to customers, remote contacts, processing and shipping, repackaging, and billing and collection. Okay, so this is the cost per unit of driver activity. So you've got visits, number of contacts, customer orders, number of requests, and invoices, right? And then the next one is taking a look at the Pure Water Company. This is customer activity cost and profitability analysis. So what it's doing is it's taking various water companies throughout the country, right? And it's looking at how many visits are made, remote contacts, all of this stuff that's related to this, okay? And then the total cost associated with visits, with remote contacts, with processing and shipping, repackaging, and billing and collection, okay? And it adds all of those together. You take a look at customer sales. Now this is what the customers paid. This is the cost of goods sold. Okay, so this is your gross profit on sales. Then you've got to take out these activity costs, right? So you just take this total activity cost and put it down here. And that's going to give you your customer profitability. This is where it becomes important. You can see some customers are more profitable than others. This one was highly unprofitable. So what do you think happens when a manager sees something like this? So let's just take for instance Great Lakes Utility. Let's say they're constantly calling in and complaining and demanding, you know, more concessions. They're demanding that you go in, you know, that you give them another discount of some kind or a refund because they're not happy with what they have or something like that. Well, at some point, you're going to take a look at that and you're going to say, all right, we've only made $12,000 off of these guys, right? Whereas Gulf Coast Utilities, we're making 15 and we're much more profitable, right? Or even better, Consolidated Water Inc. We're making $16,250 off of them. We've only spent, you know, $9 on our cost of goods, and our activity costs are only $15.65. So there's very little effort put into this customer. But so we're showing a 30% profitability on them. So who do you think, you know, if Great Lakes calls up and says, I want to cancel my contract, do you think this company is going to fight for them to stay? What do you guys think? Nope. You're right, Jeanette. They are not going to fight for them to stay. They're going to say, go ahead, because we've lost money on you. You know, they might not say we've lost money on you, but they're going to say, okay, well, I'm sorry we couldn't serve you, you know, to your needs. So, exactly, Jeanette, be someone else's problem. So you have to remember that not only as a manager, but also as a consumer. So, you know, when you call up the cable company complaining, like I do frequently, and say, I want more money off because my service isn't working right and blah, 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 I mean, you know, at some point they're going to take a look at this and they're going to say, go ahead and switch. You know, we're not making any money off of you. We're actually losing money off of you. Go ahead, switch. So, you know, the street runs both ways, and that's something that I try to make sure that you guys see. You know, one of the reasons that you study this is not just so that you learn accounting, it's so that you learn good management techniques as well. Because no matter what department you're working in, whether it be accounting or HR or just as an operations manager of some kind or a manager of some kind within that company, these are all things that you have to take into account. You have to take into account the cost. And it's not just the cost of making the product, it's the cost of supporting the product as well. It's the cost of training if there's a training issue or a training component that goes with this. All of that stuff you have to take into account. So that's what accounting does. It teaches you not just really complex formulas and how to set problems up, to figure out how to find the true cost of something or the true profitability of something. It teaches you that you have to look at all of this in order to make a good, informed management decision and make sure that you're running your company to the best of your ability. Okay? So, just a quick lesson in customer profitability and profitability overall. Object of the game, always, guys, is to make money. Okay? In any business, you're not in it to not make money. Even nonprofits have to at least break even. Okay? So, things like cost and stuff like that have to be managed. Okay? All right, so activity-based management, this is ABM, right? Is defined as the identification and selection of activities to maximize the value of activities while minimizing their cost from the perspective of the final consumer. Okay? So, in other words, this kind of breaks it down nicely. ABC is concerned with how efficiently and effectively to manage activities and processes to provide value to the customer. Okay? So, it's all about, making sure that your processes and, the things that the company does are the most efficient and effective that they can be. That is one of the reasons why with my doctoral degree, I'm looking at doing my dissertation study on change management, well, technology-enabled change management, and technology-enabled knowledge management, which basically means using things like ERPs and CRMs to automate a lot of business processes that have typically been manual and very time-consuming and take a lot of effort on employees and customer parts. So being able to automate a lot of that and focus more on more value-add activities like, maintaining relationships with a customer or improving and innovating products, right? So this is the maturing of activity-based costing. You can kind of see here, and you'll want to take a look at this. I will tell you on the quiz that there are several questions that deal with, in the last century, how has, X progressed, or how has cost performed with reliance on, manufacturing activities and activity-based costing and things like that. So you're going to want to read this and make sure you know it, okay? Don't skip these little charts, all right? So here we are at the chapter end, and you've got one problem, E621, that we're going to take a look at. So this should be a fairly easy week for you guys. All right. So here's E621. And basically all this is doing is taking you through and asking you to set up the problem, right? So everybody see my Excel as well as the book? Okay. So in A, it's asking you to calculate the cost per unit of activity driver for each activity cost category, right? So if you take a look at that, you've got your setup costs. This is all right here in this first part, okay? It's right here. So you're going to calculate your setup costs. You're going to calculate your production scheduling cost, your production engineering cost, your supervision, and your manufacturing or machine operating cost as well. Okay? So what you're going to do is it's pretty easy. So like with the setup cost, it tells you right here, you got 146,000, you got 1,000 hours. So all you do, you come over here and you do 146 divided by 1,000. So that is per setup hour. Okay? That's pretty easy, and you're going to do that for each one of these. So you're going to take the 60,000 divided by the 400. You're going to take 90,000 divided by 60. You take 56 divided by 2. 96 divided by 12. That's all you got to do for each one of these. Okay? Everybody understand A? Okay. So that's A. Then B, you're going to set up a job here. Okay? So this is going to be job 845. Right? That's coming from right here. Okay? So we're going to go over here, and you're going to take your direct materials cost, your direct labor cost, and then you're going to calculate your manufacturing overhead costs, and that's the same thing as what we were doing up top. This is why you had to calculate this up here. So you're going to take, again, your setup costs, all of these, right? And it's going to be literally the answers to these times what it's giving you. Okay? So, for instance, it says here that you've got setup hours of 5 hours, right? So your setup cost is going to be equal sign this times 5 hours, right? Does that make sense? Then your production scheduling cost, it says you've only got one batch. So whatever this answer comes up to, you're going to multiply this times 1 because you've got one batch. Okay, right now it says 0 because we don't have anything up here. Okay, but that's how you do it. The engineering cost, you've got 3 change orders for product engineering. So that's going to be whatever this is times 3. Okay? Your supervision cost, again, you've got this up here, so equal sign this times, and it tells you that you have 40 direct labor hours, right? Where does it say this? Well, because you're assuming that there's 40 hours in a week, so 40 direct labor hours, okay? And then your machine operations cost, you've got 30 machine hours, okay? So you're going to take this times 30, okay? So that is B. Does everybody understand B? Okay. And then C is asking you to calculate the cost of job 845 using plant-wide overhead rate based on machine hours calculated in the previous exercise. Okay? So to do that, you're going to take, same thing, job 845 Okay? And you're going to say my direct materials cost, which is $8,000. Okay? So, 8,000. Your direct labor cost, so $1,000. All right. And then your manufacturing overhead. Cost. And that is going to be 30 machine hours, right? Times the whatever the cost per machine hour is, okay? And that you have to get. All right, so to do that, you've got your total job 845 cost, which is 10,150. Okay. So that is, I'm giving you that number. And then you take 460,000, okay, because that's set up here. This is your total activity cost, right? 460,000 divided by 12,000, okay? And that is going to give you a value per hour, per machine hour. Okay, so you're going to use that in this part right here, in this question mark. That question mark, you're going to multiply 30 machine hours, and that's going to give you whatever your answer is for this, okay? So that gives you your machine overhead cost. All right? Then the last part, D, let's go down to D, is asking you to calculate the cost of job 845 using machine hour departmental overhead rate for the milling department and direct labor hour overhead rate for the finishing department. Okay? So, and you have to see the previous problem to do that. Okay? So you have to look up here to get some of those numbers. Okay? So, we're going to, again, set up job 845. Okay? And direct materials costs. So that again is $8,000. Got that right here, right? Then direct labor cost. And again, that's $1,000. We already got that. Then you've got your manufacturing overhead costs for the milling in the finishing departments. Manufacturing. So first one is the milling department. Okay, and that is going to be 25 machine hours. So again, we're having to refer up here, okay, to what, and use some of this as well. So you've got the 25 milling machine hours is right here, okay, and you're going to use that to, in conjunction with this, all right? And the way you're going to do this is you have to take a look at the milling department manufacturing overhead, and you have to get a rate per. So you've got, you're going to divide this, right, by the 10,000 hours, okay? So what you do there is you're going to say 25 machine hours times the rate per hour. Okay. So the way you're going to calculate that is you're going to take the 362,000 divided by the 10,000. Okay? And that gives you this rate per hour right here. Alright? So you multiply that to get whatever this is. Okay, so this is going to be equal 25 times your rate per hour, right? And that gives you your milling department. Okay, you're going to do the same thing for the finishing department, exact same thing. Okay? Alright, so you're going to take 35 labor hours, okay, which is stated, where did I just see that? Right there, 35 direct labor hours, okay, and you're going to get the rate per hour on it as well. So you've got, the finishing department has 2,000 hours, right, and or I'm sorry, it has 1,000 hours. Sorry. That's the machine hours. We're talking about labor hours, right? So you've got to take 1,000 divided by the 130 up here. So this is going to be 35 hours times the rate per hour. Okay, and to get that, you're going to do equal sign 130,000 divided by 1,000. Okay, so then you take equal sign 35 times 130. Gives you that. Then you're going to add up all of these numbers. So that is going to give you your total job 845 cost. Okay? So that's just a sum. Merry Christmas, I just worked it. Alright, so that's pretty much D in a nutshell. That's how you set it up. Alright? Everybody understand? Any questions? Okay, dokie. Alright, so that's chapter 6. Why did we put one value for machine hours? Okay, so when you're looking at the milling department, okay, you're going to look at the milling department is using the, let's see, let me make sure I get this right here. So the milling department is using the machine hours, and the finishing department is using labor. okay? And it's telling you calculate the department overhead rates using direct labor hours in the milling and machine hours in the finishing. Okay, so it told you which one it wanted you to use. Okay, good. I'm glad you saw that, Matt. All right. So you just have to watch the problems and watch what they're asking for. It's telling you which one it wants you to do. So that's why we use that. Okay? Good. All right. Any other questions? Do you guys have any questions on the midterm, or any other questions that I can answer while I'm on here? Midterm, you're more than welcome to do it in the Word document that's provided. I would encourage you to use Excel in some capacity to calculate it. You know, and again, just go through and make sure that you really check your calculations. Okay? That's why I like to use Excel, because I can put the formulas in here and see just what exactly I've calculated. You know, you see it right here. So for this one right here, you can see I use 35 times 130, and that's equaling the 4550. So it just, to me, it makes it easier to check and to make sure that I didn't miskey a number. Okay? So that's the only reason that I'm a big fan of Excel. I think that you really need to learn how to use it, because a lot of businesses out there these days do use it. And especially when you're talking about analytics, you know, it's impossible to find a job if you can't use Excel. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Nobody will hire anybody that can't use it and can't use formulas if you get into any type of analytical role. Okay? And believe me, there are a lot of companies out there these days that are paying very well for people who can think and, you know, do the analytics and really help drive business results based on that. So just keep that in mind. You know, it's up to you. I accept it in Word, and I'll accept it in Excel. So either way, completely up to you. I don't care what font size it is. I don't care what font it is. You know, you don't have to double space it. Just make sure that when you do it, that you organize it well, so that it's easy for me to follow. Okay? Make sure you're following the same pattern that the problems need to be worked in. Okay? Make sure that it follows the, you know, for instance, if you're looking at something like needing to set up, let me see if I can find an example here. If you're needing to set up something like this, make sure that you give me good column headings. You know, and this is another reason Excel's easier, because you've got everything right there. Make sure you give me good column headings. Make sure you follow it down through this format. Everything's lined up well, you know, and it's just easy for me to read. Okay? If you don't show me work and you just plug numbers in and I can't tell where you've gotten those numbers from, then you're likely, if you miss something, to not get credit for it. If I can't follow your thought pattern, then I can't give you any credit. You know, if I see where you just miskeyed something, it's one thing. If I see to where you clearly don't understand the concept at all, then that's something different. Okay? So, you know, make sure you show your work. Make sure you show me a formula or something to that nature. That's why if I get it in Excel, I can go down through the cells and see your formulas. That's why I would really like for you to do it in Excel. Okay? But if you do decide that you want to do it in Word, that's, you know, That's what I'm looking for, is being able to follow your thought process, because I want to give you credit. Keep in mind that each one of the problems that you're going to see on this midterm, there's only 10 of them, and it's worth 350 points. So that means each problem is worth 35 points a piece. Okay? So if you don't do the problem at all, that's automatically 35 points off. Okay? If you forget to do part of the problem, then, you know, that's another story. It depends on how much you forget. All right? I cannot go lenient on this. You have to do the work. As I've said earlier, make sure you go down through all of the homework problems and try to match it up with a problem on the midterm, you know, so that you have that format of what you need to do. And use the homework answers. Don't use yours that may have mistakes in it. Use the homework answers that are correct. Okay? So, anybody else have any questions on that? We all good? All right. Keep in mind, I might have some limited availability this coming week. It's going to be a very chaotic week for me. I will do my best to get back to you as fast as I can. I will definitely be watching for questions on the midterms, you know, so that I can get back to those first. I will not likely have internet access Friday and Saturday, so if you have questions, make sure you ask them prior to that, because if I don't have internet access, I can't get to these files. Okay? And I won't be able to, and likely my book that I have, my hard copy of my book, will be packed. So I won't be able to see what you're talking about. I do plan on unpacking all of that stuff first thing when we get to the new place, but just please try to plan your week to where you're not waiting until the last minute, because if you wait until the last minute, you're likely to really risk not getting the answers to your questions in enough time for you to turn something of quality in. So do your best to, you know, make sure you're starting on this early enough on in the week that you have plenty of time to work it, rework it, make sure you understand the question, make sure you have everything in it. Okay? If I were you, I would take and try to work 2 midterm problems a day. Okay? And that should have you finished with it before next weekend, which would be great because then you've got 2 days to go back through and check it. So if you break it down and you only work a couple of problems a day, it'll be a lot easier on you. Okay? So just my suggestion. Obviously, it's up to you. If you want to just take one whole day and do the whole thing in that one day, that's fine. But there's 10 problems, and you know, you can gauge how long it took you to do each homework problem to figure out as to how long it's going to take you to do a midterm, 10 midterm problems. Okay? So just keep that in mind. All right? Don't wait until the last minute. All right, guys. Any other questions before we go? No problem, Jeanette. It's my pleasure. I'm glad to do it. You are quite welcome, Brandy. Again, happy to do it. Amy, you too. You're welcome. Thanks, Matt. I think we're going to need more luck on the moving side of it than anything. I'm not looking forward to this. But, all right. Let me know if you need anything. As always, text, email, call, any which way. Okay? All right. Good luck, guys. Good luck on your midterms. Have a very happy Easter tomorrow. And, you know, have a safe weekend. And we'll talk again Monday, April the 13th at 8 p.m. Okay? Take care.